Hi, good morning, and welcome to our webinar on how to secure your Trimble total station with AllTrack and L2P. L2P being short for the Locate2Protect service offered with Trimble total station and other devices to manage and track them. My name is Richard Selby. I'm a Customer Support and Training Manager here at KOREC, and I'm joined by my colleague Ian Hall, who's a senior member of the office-based technical support team here in Liverpool, where we are today. The webinar, we're going to have a mixture of some detail on the slides as we go through, plus Ian's going to hop in and take over and give us some live demonstrations of the AllTrack system in action. Running through the themes, we're going to start with an overview of the Locate2Protect service, go into some detail then on the configuration. So if you recently got the service with a total station, or you've had it for a while and you need to learn a little bit more about how to set it up and run it, then we're going to go through all the detail you need in order to do that. We'll look at how you obtain your position and report where your track devices are, how to get the best out of the system, the optimal usage, what you can do in the unfortunate event that a total station or other device is stolen, and a few other ideas in terms of technology-based security measures. So survey equipment theft, unfortunately, it's something that's been on the increase in recent years. Large cost to business, both the material cost of replacing stolen equipment, insurance overheads and so on, plus of course all the inconvenience and downtime costs that are going to be incurred while an instrument needs to be sourced and replaced. And of course there's the stress and concern of not only to the owner of the device, but the person responsible for the equipment at the time a theft may occur. So hopefully there's some technology measures that we can put in place that, if they can't prevent theft outright, might deter people inclined to steal equipment to some degree. So here we're looking at technology-based solutions. There's two main themes here. We're going to look at how you can secure your equipment using PIN codes, but the main content of the webinar said is on the Locate2Protect tracking system, which is what we're going to start off with. So this slide gives us an overview of the system as a whole. So it starts off with an L2P device, a tracker essentially, with a SIM card that's fitted inside the S-series total stations. Talking about total stations. That device then enables tracking through GPS, satellite location, when outdoors, and when in areas where GPS signal reception is going to be compromised, it's going to supplement any positional information with augmented GPS methods using mobile network connections to locate the position of the device. That information, that position information, is communicated out via a data network to a centre where all that information is collated and can then be accessed by the users of the system through a website called AllTrack. We've had a couple of instruments thefts recently where fortunately the total stations in this case, both Trimble S5 total stations have been recovered. There's one here from the 24th of June, stolen in the Coventry area of the UK, and was tracked and recovered very, very quickly. And a second one here, which was discovered in a skip in a car park, and unfortunately needs a check over, but hopefully is still in good working order. Now, getting into the detail of the Locate2Protect system. So here we really want to give a bit more detail on how to set it up and get the best out of this system. So in terms of total stations of course are very high value items to a business. It will fit in any of the Trimble S series devices. It is a subscription service, it's an annual subscription. The cost per total station is approximately £350 in the UK for the 12 months cover. Essentially in the workshop we will check that the L2P module is configured and working and it's reporting a position before it leaves us. That's the case for new total stations, new sales. Total stations that are already out there, there's a very good chance that if you take up the subscription, we won't need the total station to return to the workshop. We'll be able to set it up and make sure it's tracking remotely for you. So we register customers' information with Trimble in something called the virtual warehouse. So all the information regarding the customer, the name, the company, contact information, and the information regarding the total station to be tracked. We all set that up so that it's ready to start tracking. And that process is started when an email invitation is sent to the user of the system, inviting them to activate their subscription. So here on the right of the screen, you can see an example of this invitation email. So really from the user's perspective, this is the first bit of dialogue that's going to come your way. So it's a self-managed system, so that those that subscribe to the Locate2Protect service essentially set up and manage and monitor the system yourself. So really, you need to identify a key person within the organisation, perhaps someone office-based who's going to be responsible for activating these subscriptions and managing the system as a whole, and checking that all the tracked devices are reporting a position on a regular basis and that everything's working as it should. So the first thing, as I said, is to proceed through the activation process when you receive this email. And that's done by hitting the yellow activate link on the email. And that's going to take you to a web page where you're invited to sign in using something called a Trimble ID, which is essentially just an email address and a password which is set up and registered with Trimble. If you don't already have one of these IDs, then as part of the sign-in process, you're prompted to create one. So you just want to make a note then of the email address and the password that's been used. So when you signed in to the subscription website, there will be a series of panels, and for a new total station, for a new subscription where you want to activate and start the service, you'll see a box like this on the screen. There's a link to the terms of use. You can see there in the lower left corner. So it's a good idea to click on there and review the terms of use, and then tick the box agreeing to those terms of use before hitting the activate button. Also on that page, if you have any currently running subscriptions on other total stations, you'll see information on those as well, and when the expiry date is for those additional subscriptions. For any new ones will come in, make sure you tick the box and hit activate. That is then going to cause this email to be sent out to you, which is going to invite you to log into the AllTrack website. Now, again, for a new total station, the first time you subscribe to this system, you want to log in and create essentially your AllTrack account with your email and password. This link that comes in the email to you, it does have an expiry on it, as it says there. You can see that it will expire after 24 hours. So if you don't get onto the email straight away, just click on the forgot password page, and that will cause the link to be resent. But if you already have an AllTrack login because you've got other total stations already tracked, then you can just log straight into the AllTrack system using the existing login info to see the newly tracked instrument and subscription there. Okay, so there's the web address for the AllTrack website. We said this is the bit really where you interact with the whole system, where you can manage and monitor the location of the tracked total stations and any other devices that are in the system. So the launch page is shown on the right hand side of the screen here. It's called the dashboard. That's what you'll see initially. A bit of a map in the top and a summary of any alerts below it. When you're new to the system, there are sort of three things that you need to set up really. Firstly, you'd want to go in and set up information about your own company or organisation, some user details, and also some location details. And locations would be typical places where instruments are going to reside, company offices, stores, but could also be job sites or site compounds where equipment might regularly be located. So you'd want to devote a little bit of time when you're new to AllTrack to the website to get everything set up just as you wish for your organisation in order to get the best out of this service. And over the next few slides, we're just going to look at some of these steps in a bit more detail. And what we're going to start off with here is setting up your company information. So in the top right-hand corner of the web page, you'll see the name that you're logged in with. In this case, we can see my name in the top right-hand corner. And if you click on your name, a little drop-down menu will appear, and on the top there is company settings. So you want to go into company settings and essentially just put in your company information, address, contact information, and so on. And then in terms of options, you can just tick on to allow email notifications. So we can see here, allow email notifications is set to yes. Actually, there's not much to set up in the company settings section, so you don't need to spend an awful lot of time in there tweaking that up. But just make sure that the email notifications is turned on to yes. And there's a little pen edit button there that will allow you to edit any of these options shown on the screen. Okay, so once the company information has been set up and the email notifications are turned on, it's a good idea then to set up a list of those employees that are going to need to interact with the tracking service, and in particular the AllTrack website. So there's a button in the centre of the web page, a couple of people on it there, the employee button. You tap that button and you'll get a list of all the existing employees or contacts set up in your AllTrack account. So you'll want to tap to add new employees. You've got a dialog box like the one then shown on the right, and you can determine what level of responsibility they will then have in terms of interaction with the system. For example, whether you want to allow them to have access to log in to the AllTrack website, or whether you want to make them just responsible for a particular total station or other device. So it's important that along with that responsibility categorization in there, we also put the contact information in, telephone numbers and email addresses. Should they be responsible for a total station and an alert needs to be generated for it, then obviously it gets them to the right person. So step one, we set up the company information. Step two, you want to set up a list of the employees that you want to interact with the system. And lastly, it's not mandatory, but it's a good idea in order to get the best out of the system, that the AllTrack website can set up what are called locations. So there'll be a default location to begin with, which your total station will be assigned to, but you're able to set up these additional locations, which would be, as I said earlier, locations where the total station or other device might be located on a routine or even occasional basis. So say company offices, job sites, compounds. We can set those up within the web page, and then it's possible to assign instruments to those as belonging to those locations by default. At this stage, it's a good idea to, when setting up a new location, to enable something called a geofence. There's a tick box for that, as you can see on the screen there, and also to tick on alerts for entering and exiting of that geofenced area by a total station. We'll discuss that more just in a moment. So here's an example of a geofence. In this case, it's around a job site. Essentially, it's a user-defined area, which you can see outlined by the red polygon on the screen. It's just a case of tapping and positions on the screen to set up that geofenced area. So multiple geofences can be attached to any location, but the idea is that we would get a report generated when an instrument reports for the first time either outside or inside that geofenced area. So when it crosses in or out of that area, an email alert is going to go to the person responsible for the total station that's crossed over the boundary. So at this stage, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Ian, who's going to give some live demonstration of setting up.
Good morning, everybody. Okay, so what you see on the screen now is our AllTrack website, which is actually our account for the KOREC hire and sales fleet. So this is the dashboard, and obviously at the top of the screen we have a series of icons, which if you hover the mouse over the icon, it'll basically explain what the icon represents. So we at the moment are showing up the dashboard. As we move across from left to right, we can see locations. We can then see the assets icon, which will list all of our total stations. Moving across, we'll have the list of employees. So everybody who you want to actually put on the AllTrack system will appear here. And then further on, there are other icons, which we're not going to really go into, but you can actually set up asset classes, and you can really make it very complicated for transposing assets between locations, apply costings, etc. So let's first of all quickly go into the locations icon. And this shows you on the left-hand side, as you can see, ours is very well populated, but new users will find they will have a default warehouse. And in here will be your units, your brand new units and existing units to start off with. And what we can do here is then move the units between locations and assign the units to an employee. So just above the locations tab, we have these new icons. We can add a location, we can edit the location, obviously we can deactivate locations. So you can see you can get really complicated setups for you as a user. But what we're going to do simply today is create a new location. So here, the new web page pops up a new window where we can create the new location. By clicking on the word new location, I can enter whatever I want my new location to be. Now that could be an office, it could be an employee, it could be an employee's home, or it could be a job site. So I'm just going to call this one today as Liverpool Demo. Click Save and Exit. This then takes me to the second page where I can actually determine what that location is, so that any user who goes onto the system can actually look and see what the particular location is. So I'm going to say that my new location is a job site. What I can then do for that location is assign a person to be responsible for it. In this case, I'll make myself as the responsible person. And what that does, it pre-populates the information. So in here, it's got my actual mobile number. I'm also keen to actually create a geofence later in the demonstration. So I'm actually going to tick Enable Geofence. And what you see that does at the top right-hand corner, it's actually created the Define Geofence tab. And later in the demonstration, we'll go into this and show you in detail how you set the geofence up. What I can also populate on here is I can actually pre-populate it to actually alert when that total station enters or exits that geofence. Once I'm happy with my location, I click Save and Exit. Now on the left-hand side, you can actually see we now have a new location. And what I'll be able to do now is actually move one of my total stations into that location for my responsibility. And we'll do that at a later stage. So what I'll do now is I'll leave this all-track cloud here at this location, and we'll jump back in a moment and do a little bit more information.
Okay, thanks Ian. So Ian's going to show us how to set up one of these geofences for a location a little bit later on here. So if you have any questions as we run through the content here, please feel free just to submit that in the chat panel, in the meeting dialogue, and we'll pick those up as we go along, and we'll come to them at the end. So, geofences are a good idea to set up. They're not mandatory, but they do help manage general tracking of your total station assets. So, geofences, Ian has just said, they're attached to a location. They're not attached to specific total stations. So any total station that you have tracked within the service is going to generate an alert when it crosses into or out of any of the locations. So in terms of adding a total station to a location, I think with time constraints, we won't have time to show this, but it's a fairly easy procedure here. So all that's required is when the total station has appeared in the default location, as it will when the subscription is first activated. It's a case of clicking on the name that's been assigned to the total station. In this case, on the screen, we can see our friendly name is Tim Lear S7. It's a total station that often resides here in Liverpool with us. Quite a lot of support. So if we wanted to move that total station from being assigned to one location to another, just click on the location that it's in, click on the instrument in question, hit the delete symbol as shown by the bin there, click on the new location and press the plus button, the add button, to move it to the new location. Okay, and at this stage, it's probably a good opportunity if Ian shows how we set up one of those geofences for a location.
Okay, so we're back onto our all-track location. So I've now clicked on the specific S7 that we are going to be looking at. So we're looking at the Tim Lear S7 unit. So I simply highlight the unit, and then over here we've actually got the edit asset where we can change various things. But if we go to edit location, we can actually go in and define the geofence. So if I click on the Define Geofence tab, you'll see that it'll populate a geofence that we've created already around our office. So if I wanted to create another geofence somewhere completely different, maybe on a road construction site, which I could be working on the M6 and the M57 interchange here, I go over to the right-hand side and click Add Geofence. In here, I can put the geofence name, which I'm just going to call it Road Site 1. I can change the color by just simply going onto the color screen here and deciding what color I want it to be. And then I simply go and click on Create. What this allows you to do is to actually click on the map and put in pins to locate the job site in question. And by simply working my way around the construction site that I know I want to put a geofence around, and double clicking, I actually create the geofence for the new site. I simply now click Save, and that has created a second geofence for this particular total station. So you can have as many geofences as you want per total station, and it will locate and actually report if it goes in and out of these two geofences. So we will get a report that leaves our Liverpool office, and we will get a second report if it enters the roadside geofence. So it's a very clever system, so you can actually have reportability in real time of where your total station is. Once I'm happy with everything, I click Save and Exit, and the location has been updated, and the data is in the system ready to locate and send me emails. So I'll send you back to Richard to carry on a little bit further.
Okay, thanks Ian. So we've got a geofence set up there for an additional geofence set up for the Liverpool location. In terms of reporting the position of a total station, in other words, tracking it down and then querying where it is, again, it's a case of locating the total station within the all-track web page. We can either just do that under the assets list, or if you know which location it belongs in, you can browse to the location and select it there. So essentially all you need to do then to query the location of the total station, or indeed to see the last time it reported automatically, is to click on its name, and then in the top right hand corner, towards the top right hand corner of the interface of the screen, you'll see three symbols: a battery symbol, kind of a location symbol, and a mobile network data symbol. So essentially, the SIM card, if it's able to communicate out with the outside world to the cloud to provide information about the state of the tracking device at the time that it's queried. So the battery level there is the amount of battery charge that's remaining in the tracker module. Now, this is important because the tracker does have its own small battery. It's not powered solely by the total station battery in the case of a total station. So it has its own internal battery which has a certain life. So it's important that that battery has good charge in it at all times. Next to that, the location symbol, if that's bold, then it means that the tracking device is able to locate via GPS signals, and the last symbol would indicate whether it's able to locate via augmented GPS using the mobile data network. So by looking at those little icon symbols there, we can see the state of the tracker inside the total station when we contact it and we query its position. So when you've clicked on the name of a total station, on the right hand side of the screen you'll see a dialog box which will give you a whole host of information about the total station, which Ian can show you in a moment. Here in the little screen grab snippet, we can see, in this case, an example of when the position was last queried, when the slides were compiled, and there's a little highlighted red highlight around the button in the corner of the map screen, and that's your location button. So if you press that button through the all-track system, it's going to communicate over the mobile data network with the tracker inside the total station, and it's going to ask it for its status. So it's going to report back the information we previously discussed, the battery level, the location method, etc. And it's going to come back with its lat long position, and it's then going to plot the position on the map. Of course, then it's possible to zoom in on the map and see in more detail where the total station device is located. There's also a historical position button, the one with the number 7 in it, in the top left-hand corner of the map display. And if you click on that, you can put in a date range that will enable you to plot the position where the total station has reported over a given period. So you can see a little bit of the history of where the total station has been, as well as its current live location. Okay, and you can see here as well, it's a good way of, if you put in the information for the total station, you can set up things like the annual calibration date, when the warranty might expire. So useful bits of information that you might want to be reminded of when you go in and check the instrument. So the map screen in a little more detail, you can toggle between a conventional map view as shown on the left, and if you hit the button in the bottom left corner there of the map display, you can then toggle to a satellite-based view, so you can get an optimal view on the position of the total station. So Ian's just going to take us through a bit of live demo now, just reporting on the location of the total station.
Okay, so we're back onto our AllTrack Cloud website, and if I highlight the instrument that we're interested in, what's happened on the right-hand side is that it gives me a lot of information of what we set up in the system for the instrument. As I bring the icon down and up to the middle of the screen, we can actually see the map, which is showing us where the total station last reported. So as Richard mentioned, we have icons up in the top right hand here, and we can see that at the moment the L2P module is showing a 95% charge, which is good. Interestingly enough, you can see that the GPS icon is actually showing as being inactive. Now all that means is that it currently hasn't got a GPS location. But we can see that the right-hand icon, the GSM active, is bold, which means it can report a location. And we can see on the map from the time and date that it last reported at 9:42. So what I'm going to try and do is just ask for it for a location. So as you can see, as I hover over the right-hand icon, it tells you what I'm going to do. Now this may take a few minutes, but I'm actually going to request the location. So what's happening now, it's shot off through the cloud and has got the information correctly located. And as you can see, the time and date has now populated with 10:38. So this is a real-time location, which you can do at any time as you want. What I'll quickly show you now is by clicking the icon for the map to turn to satellite map. By simply clicking on the map, you're able to locate the location of the total station and actually zoom in and see where exactly you are located. I'll click back to Street View and see where we are. As Richard mentioned, you can also hit the icon here on the left-hand side, which allows you to populate a historic piece of information. We're allowed to do up to 30 days at a time. So by simply clicking on the date, I can see where this instrument was back in June. So I can go from the 19th of June up until yesterday. And I can now tell the software to go away and find the information. Now what will happen is that will go off and gather the historic information. And that will come back to us as a PDF, which will give us a schedule of lat and long information of where it's located over that period of time. What has happened here, which I'm glad it has happened because it will happen to you as well, it just tells you that for some reason the cloud connectivity has gone down. I can then simply go back and ask for the request again to see whether or not it would come back with the location. But for the time constraints of this webinar, we won't do that just at the moment. So there's a brief overview of how you can detail where the total station is and the history. So I'll just send you back now to Richard to continue with the webinar.
Okay, thanks, Ian. So we were to query the location in real time using the AllTrack page there. Now, to get the most or the best out of the system and the tracking and the positioning, I mentioned that the L2P module has its own small battery in it. Now, we want to maintain the battery level in that to a higher degree as possible. And the best way to do that is to keep a charged, case of a total station, Trimble S series battery in the total station when the total station isn't being used. So if it's being used on a daily basis or a regular basis, no problem. Just the battery being in the total station whilst it's being used is enough to trickle charge up the small L2P module battery. So no problem there. But if you're not going to be using the total station for a while, or it's off a project, or or you're on vacation and you know it's not going to be used for a while, then just leave a charged battery in the total station to keep that L2P module battery topped up. Now, there are a few settings for the track total stations it's worth making you aware of, so that you can check that yours is set up in this way. And Ian's going to show us how to get in and do this in a moment. But essentially, there are a number of settings that you can configure for a total station, such as how frequently it reports its position. There's a distance threshold that you can use for it to report if it moves a certain distance. Again, probably best to keep that turned off. And also, it will report if it moves suddenly to a certain degree. So that you can control, as well as to what level of sharp movement is incurred before it reports its position. So there are things there to do with the battery life that we need to consider, but also the use of geofences, as we discussed already. Using geofences is a good way of generally tracking your total station movement. So if you're getting regular fence alerts, then you can be confident that your tracking system is working, the total station is reporting its position as it should. But, so a key thing here that this is your system to maintain and operate. You keep on top of your total stations in terms of their position reporting, and you check them on a regular basis. That you can query their position, as Ian did a moment ago with one of our support instruments, so that you can check that all is good with it. So I'll hand back to Ian now, and he'll show you just where you put in those settings.
So simply by highlighting the total stations we did before, we can actually go into edit the asset. Now it's in this area where we can actually look at the tab position reporting. And in here, we tend to set this to default for all our customers' instruments. So when you receive your new instrument or your L2P unit is set up, we recommend that you set the frequency of the ping rate to once every 6 hours. So the all-track system will report the location of your total station 4 times a day. We also recommend that you set the distance threshold to off. So if you imagine you went to a job site that was 30 miles away and you traveled down the M6 to go to the site, you would actually get the location of that device every 500 meters, which will actually start to use up the L2P battery. So it's key to actually turn that off. We don't recommend you have that on at all unless something untoward happens and we need to look at the reporting in a bit more detail. Now, the third one, which is the impact threshold, this, I feel, is quite an important thing to have, especially if you are the equipment manager and you want to maintain your equipment to its best use. If you have a surveyor who inadvertently drops the instrument and actually doesn't tell you that he's dropped it, you can continue doing surveys and setting out with possibly a broken instrument and you wouldn't know. So we would recommend you set this up to a serious fall impact threshold. Now, we believe this is equivalent to the unit actually falling over, and we've actually had success in actually showing that some of our couriers have actually thrown the unit about in transit between hires. So we do recommend you have this. You will get a impact email with a time and a date, so you will be able to also locate where this happened. So we found this one is a very good one to use, and it's an underestimated test to have on board, so very important. So by having this set up to this sort of format, we believe that the L2P module in the device will last for approximately 5 to 6 days without a total station battery. So if you were to set the position rate down to once every 15 minutes, you may well find the L2P module would actually only stay active for about 2 days. So playing about with these settings is critical in getting the longevity of the L2P module. So just to recap, always have it set to 6 hours, threshold for distance set to off, and the impact threshold to 3 to 4G going forward. So I can simply now click Save and Exit, and that will then update the system, and the asset is now set to record at that interval. So I'll now pass you back to Richard.
Okay, thanks Ian, that's some good tips there. So should the unfortunate happen and an instrument is stolen, then of course log into the all-track system and, as Ian showed, query the location, current location of the total station. If for any reason it's not reporting a position, perhaps it's somewhere where there's no mobile data signal, so it can't be contacted, then it's a good idea to draw a geofence, as Ian showed, around the area where the total station was last used or last reported a position. And that means that when the total station, when the tracking unit does get a mobile signal and it does report its position, the person responsible for the total station will receive an email alert notifying them that it's reported a position that's outside the geofence area. So as soon as you get that email, you can think, right, okay, it's reporting again, let's go onto the all-track system and query its current location and find out where it is. So if you have difficulty with any of this, with the all-track system as a whole, or your instrument is stolen and you need assistance in tracking its position, then by all means get in touch with us. Here are our UK support office contact information shown on the screen, telephone number and email address. Report the incident to the police and advise them that the total station has a tracker on board and can be tracked. So to track the location in the field, well, we need access to the all-track web page. So you want to view the all-track web page on a device that's got a suitably sized screen. So something with a 7-inch screen or larger will be able to allow you to easily see the location, the map box showing the total station position, so you can zoom in and get a really good idea as to exactly where the total station is in real time. Now that could be any tablets which can access the internet, but TSE7, Trimble TSE7 controller would also be ideal for that. So best leave the recovery of a tracked instrument to the police. So we'd certainly recommend that and employ great caution if attempting to retrieve the stolen instrument directly yourself. So if the position is reported as somewhere that appears to be benign, you know, like a field or somewhere, then perhaps consider. But yeah, so that otherwise certainly leave the recovery to the police. Exercise all caution. So if you provide the crime number given to you by the police for the stolen instrument and the instrument serial number 2 KOREC, we can do a couple of things. We can report that incident to a contact at the Metropolitan Police who are monitoring survey instrument theft, and they can also get in touch with the local force responsible then for the recovery. And we can also put the details of the stolen instrument into the software used by the workshop to maintain the total station when it comes into us for service or repair. That software system is called Atlas, and it's used by all the Trimble authorised service centres internationally. So if we enter into the system that that total station is stolen, should it then appear at any service centre internationally, it will flag up as being stolen and can be returned to the correct owner. So that's the Locate2Protect service, the tracking service which we access through. You as the user of the system would manage and access through the AllTrack website. In terms of technology, there are a few other things to consider here. So the use of PIN codes. We can secure a total station with a PIN code. So to use a total station, a PIN has to be entered to access it. Now that can be done on the total stations that have the phase 2 LCD panels, but it's probably easiest to set up and configure through Trimble Access. So once you're connected to a total station, if you press the instrument button in Trimble Access, go to your instrument settings menu and hit PIN. You can see the PIN button there at the screen grab on the top right of the slide. You can then put in a PIN code for the total station to secure it. So once that total station is powered off, the next time it's powered on and it's attempted to be accessed via Trimble Access, a PIN box will appear asking you to enter a PIN code before it can be used. So time's getting on here, so we just recorded a little video to show that process of how to set up a PIN code and how to disable the PIN code if you want to remove its use as well.
To set a PIN number to lock a total station, so it requires PIN access in Trimble Access, whether it's the new style interface or the older 2017 and previous interface. It's in the same location, so I'm connected here to an S7 total station via radio, and we'll go to the menu, choose instrument, and then instrument settings. And on instrument settings at the bottom of the screen there'll be a PIN button. Press that and I can put in a PIN number to secure the instrument, enter and accept. There's also a puck button here, so it's a good idea to press that and take a note of that puck code, because should the PIN code get forgotten, the owner of the puck code can unlock the device and reset the PIN. So click back and accept, and I'm now going to disconnect from the total station. Disconnected. Now I'm going to reconnect to the total station. So when it's connected, it's now going to prompt to enter a PIN. Put in the PIN, reset, press enter, accept, and the connection will then be populated for the total station. If I wish to unset the PIN number, be the same process. So instrument settings, PIN, put in the PIN number, and then press none and accept and accept. And that will turn off the PIN security.
Okay, so there is a little some instruction there on how to secure your total station, any Trimble robotic total station from the S3 right up to the the most current the SX10 there with a pin code, so only those who know the pin code will be able to connect to and use the instrument. Now, it's also worth mentioning that controllers can also be tracked and managed within the all-track system, and also GNSS equipment as well, and that's done via something called the equipment manager. So if you're interested in setting that up, then please get in touch with us. We're nearly up to our hour, so we're just about done here. Just got a couple of questions to go over and go over our contact details. So if you have any queries about using the all-track system, about securing with pin codes or tracking other devices, we've got information on our knowledge base page, and our contact details are here for the UK support at KOREC.com and the Liverpool number shown, and then for the support team at the office in Dublin for Ireland, they've got their supportire at KOREC.com email address to contact that team on, and the telephone number for the guys there too. Okay, so we just got a couple of questions here to go over. So the first one is regarding the battery life, which Ian mentioned there. So with it pinging a position every 6 hours as we recommend, then without a battery in the total station, the L2P module will continue to report its position for about 5 days. Yes, Ian?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. So, so that's why it's a good idea to keep that instrument battery in the total station when it's not being used for any extended period, so that L2P module battery is kept topped up. And also, what have we got? Okay. So, will the device report if it's taken out of the country? So, yeah, the SIM card that's in the tracking module, the L2P module, is an international service SIM card. So, yeah, if it's a total station that's been purchased from us and used predominantly in the UK or Ireland, and then it's stolen and taken overseas, wherever it then picks up a mobile data signal, as long as there's some battery life in that L2P module, will report its position. Okay, I think we're all done there now. Thanks for watching. So if you've got any further questions, please feel free to get in touch. We've recorded this webinar, so if you want to come back to it and revisit any of the information shown, it will be posted on our KOREC Group YouTube channel, and we'll also get it posted up into the knowledge base pages as well. So from Ian and myself, thanks for attending, and until next time, bye for now.